Good morning and welcome. So I'd like to start. I say to you, where is your fire? I say, where is your fire? You got to find it and pass it on. You have got to find it and pass it on. From you to me, from me to her, from her to him, and from franchisor to franchisee, from supplier to vendor, from entrepreneur to community. You have got to find it and pass it on. This is the words of Sister Sonia Sanchez. And I welcome all the attendees today and thank you for your participation in this inaugural International Franchise Association Black Franchise Leadership Council event. My name is Richard Snow, and I'm honored to say that I am the chair of the IFA's Black Franchise Leadership Council. I'm also the vice president of the National Franchise Program for the SBA at Wisvis Bank. My vice chair is Carolyn Thurston. She's also an IFA board member, and she's also CEO of Wisdom Senior Care. The IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council was born out of the IFA's Diversity Institute, was born out of the flame of the IFA's Diversity Institute. And we really feel that that flame is what we're passing on, passing that torch into the IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council. The Institute will become the fire for Black franchise entrepreneurs that want to become successful in the franchise industry. And we envision a day that the IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council will become the vehicle utilized to pass it on, in the words of my sister Sonia Sanchez. Our mission will revolve around 4 core principles. 1, to promote awareness, understanding, and access to franchise opportunities for Black entrepreneurs. To create and maintain an organizational culture where inclusion, diversity, and creativity are valued. We will educate franchisors, franchisees, and the franchise community to provide a new perspective and stimulate discussion of Blacks in franchising. Finally, we will provide regular opportunities to exchange information with the council members and other appropriate parties within the IFA Council and external groups as needed. We know the goal is heavy and audacious, but it's said that many hands make light work. So we invite you to join the council and become one of the many hands that will uplift the Black franchise community. And staying with the theme of uplift, we would like to say thank you and allow opening remarks from our sponsors, our courageous sponsors that have provided their support, have given their spirit, and also financial support to the IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council. Those sponsors are Tim Williams, CEO of Williams Chicken, Carolyn Thurston, CEO of Wisdom Senior Care, and Carlos White, partner at Hutch, Blackwell. So I now turn the floor over to comments from Tim Williams, CEO of Williams Chicken.
Good morning. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of the IFA. I've been a member of IFA for, I guess, since 2000. Williams Chicken's been around for about 32 years. We'll operate out of Texas. We have 40 units up and another 2 or 3 in the making. But I've been part of IFA for a while. This year I had the pleasure to be part of the national board of IFA along with Ms. Carolyn, which is a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to carrying on the duties as a board member of IFA, to be supported not only for the IFA, but also very supportive of the Black Franchise Council, which I think is very important that we do to educate people on franchising. And I usually ask the question, how did you get into franchising? Was it by design or by accident? And most of the answers are by accident. So we need to educate and show people that there is a great opportunity to be part of some franchise, be a franchisee, a franchisor, or be part of a corporation that does franchising. I think franchising is a very key part of our economy, and looking forward to working with the board members of the IFA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next, we will have Carolyn Thurston, CEO of Wisdom Senior Care.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be able to be here and actually be part of such a great event. Any time that we have the opportunity to educate, I truly get excited about that. We have been members of the IFA now going on 4 years, and it's just been such a wealth of information, networking, and it's awesome that we're now able to even focus in on a group that truly has an opportunity to grow if they're just made aware that this opportunity is here. So Wisdom is so excited to be able to be part of this and really help get things kicked off. And I'm excited to hear from the panels today as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Carolyn. Next, we will have comments from Carlos White, partner at Hutch, Blackwell.
Good morning, everyone. It's such an honor and a pleasure to serve as a sponsor as well as participate on this Black Franchise Leadership Council virtual panel. As a franchise attorney and former franchise owner myself that was able to grow a franchise business and eventually sell it, I understand firsthand the benefits as well as the challenges that Black-owned businesses, especially in the franchising space, face. So I'm more of a person that, as opposed to about talking about, is like, what type of initiatives can we do to help out the community? So one of the initiatives that we've partnered with Williams Chicken as my firm has rolled out a Communities for Change initiative. In this initiative, we will provide on a pro bono basis some transactional and business law counsel to Black-owned businesses in the 18 cities where we have offices. Our hope is that this representation will help provide a substantial lift to these businesses, and in doing so, address disparities in these communities by empowering the businesses and the individuals that they employ. Again, thanks for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Carlos. Now, I would like to also give special thanks to several individuals that made the IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council possible. And there's many, many people that we could thank, but these are core individuals we want to acknowledge. Robert Crisanti, President and CEO of the IFA. Tony Valley, Chairman of the IFA Foundation. Catherine Monson, Chair of the IFA Board and CEO and President of Fast Signs International. Ricky Amos, Executive Director of the IFA Foundation. Matthew Holler, Senior Vice President of the IFA's Government Relations and Public Affairs Department. Ursa Jackson, Chair of the IFA Diversity Institute and IFA Board Member. J.D. Draper, Vice Chair of the IFA Diversity Institute and IFA Board Member. Latanya Pouncey, IFA Diversity Institute Board Member and Advisor to the IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council. Carolyn Thurston, Vice Chair of the Black Franchise Leadership Council, also an IFA Board Member, and all the fellow IFA members and IFA Black Franchise Leadership Council members that have worked together, come together in this spirit, in this flame to create this community for this segment of the franchise industry. We will now have remarks at this time from Tony Valley, and he will provide some opening remarks for us.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the time. I have to tell you, I already feel, you made me feel a certain way just with your opening remarks. I can tell you a couple things. I've been in franchising since I was 19, which is only 3 years of franchising. And it's meant everything to me and allowed me to grow and allowed me to create great relationships. But there's two things that really stand out. One of my mentors would always say you have to light many fires. So it was really interesting because I wrote that down before you spoke, Richard. you have to light many fires in a lot of different places in order for change to happen. I think that through Ursa's leadership on diversity, and thank you, Ursa, for all your leadership, and Ricky, your leadership on this as well on our side. We're just trying to create the opportunity for all this to happen. And I really am very excited that, you know, anyone can change easy things. Anyone can change easy things. These are the hard things to change. The hard work on the right things is one of my favorite mottos. So we picked one of the right things to do the work on. There will be support. And I will tell you, I think there's close to 100 people on this call. We're going to be reaching out to everyone to row together towards a change. So thank you so much, Richard, for allowing me to, thanks to everyone for being on and the panelists. And thanks for allowing me to have some opening remarks.
You're welcome, Tony. Thank you. So now we turn and pivot to why we are here. Today's panel discussion will focus on empowering success in the franchise industry. And we are blessed to have three dynamic speakers that epitomize success in the franchise industry for Black franchisors and franchisees. And they're willing to share that wisdom. They are truly the juggernauts. In my mind, my body and spirit, they are the juggernauts of industry. And to moderate this discussion, I would like to introduce John Lancaster. He's the Regional Vice President of Emerging Markets, Franchise Development, and Owners Relations at Choice Hotel International. So now, John, I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I appreciate all of the sponsors as well for this inaugural panel of the Black Franchise Leadership Council. Now, I know Richard mentioned my title, Emerging Markets. Now, what we have to remember is that emerging markets, in our perspective, is not a destination. It's actually an ethnicity. So we're targeting those underrepresented minorities to get them into the franchise industry. So I'd just like to take a moment of time to let you know that this is not just going to be us speaking to you. So we want participation as well. And the participation that I want from you right now is, when you think of franchising, what is the one word that comes to mind? If you can take a look over to the right side of your chat and put that one word in there, that would be fantastic. And we just want to go over that with you. I'll give everyone about 10 seconds to do that. Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. From some of those words that are coming through, I see opportunity. I see growth. I see tenacity. I see movement. I'll just go over my word really quickly, which may be a little odd, and my word is pole vaulting. And the reason why I think that word comes to mind in franchising is that there is a high bar that we believe that is there for us to go over. Well, we're here to knock that bar down a little bit, to let you know about our franchising opportunities that we have. And with that, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel. And rather than me speaking and giving their bios, I would let them do that themselves. And I'd like to start that off with Ruth, if you don't mind starting us off and giving us a brief bio and your company.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth Agbaji, and I'm the CEO and founder of CodeWiz. CodeWiz is an after-school program for kids, and just simply put, we help kids unlock their inner geniuses through coding and robotics. I am super, super excited to be here. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, and the word that I chose is growth. And for me, franchising represents growth, not just in a monetary sense, but growth in every facet of life. Like, we are a CodeWiz, our goal is to grow our impact around the world, making sure that we are reaching tons and tons of kids and helping them to become who they want to be and who they can be. Growth in terms of leadership. You know, for me as a young person, I am learning so much about patience, you know, helping people to grow their businesses, working with people. And then even just the people around me, the employees and the people that look up to me, they are seeing us grow as a business and they are inspired to be able to do the same thing. So for me, growth is my keyword, and I am just super, super happy to be here. And looking forward to sharing more about my story and my journey into franchising as we go.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Growth. That is the word. As we take that word and move on, speaking of growth, I'd like to let Carolyn introduce herself.
Thank you. I'm Carolyn Thurston. I am the founder and CEO of Wisdom Senior Care. And my word for franchising is opportunity, because that's truly what I see in franchising. And as you hear Wisdom's story, as we got started, franchising really gave us the opportunity where deep in our heart was to reach and help many people who were like-minded, who wanted to have their own business, but are maybe facing obstacles, not knowing how to. So it's an avenue to help those who want to have an opportunity. And sometimes I'm finding, even within my own story, I start out one way thinking that this is how it's supposed to be. But then as you go along the journey, you find there's so many other opportunities out there. So I look forward to being able to give you more of how Wisdom Senior Care's journey started into franchising.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. I appreciate that. And speaking of opportunity, and I think Omar and I share a little bit of history from a track perspective where I was actually a pole vaulter. I have Omar introduce himself.
Thanks, John. First, I must say the pole vaulters were crazy. Special type of personality to do that sport, because sometimes you miss the mat. But that says a lot about your character, certainly, in all honesty. I also use the word opportunity. Probably not that creative, but it just really resonated with me. When we talk more about my background, it will probably come out. But I think the thing that I find unique about franchising is there's so many different places to get on the train and contribute and lead to wealth creation. And there's not many places or industries that you can do that. I mean, I've seen people that start out working in a franchise operation, move up, learn the skills, open up one unit, open up a second, third unit, and you can play from franchisor to franchisee to small, small unit, one unit owner to multi-unit owner. And so I think there's just so much opportunity, and it's not constrained by your resume or your background. It's really kind of unlimited. So I think that's why opportunity really resonates with me when I think of franchising.
Thank you very much, Omar. Appreciate that. I'd like to just start off to give you a little bit of background and sort of share my journey into franchising. Believe it or not, my journey starts back to when I was much, much younger, when I was 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10. I grew up in the not so humble areas of Washington, D.C., Southeast and Northeast. And growing up, I had great pleasure in doing two things. Number one, I had the opportunity every Friday to go to McDonald's, which was awesome. And number two, I had the opportunity to go on a vacation to Virginia Beach. Now, there were 8 of us that lived in a one-bedroom home. So, of course, when we traveled, there would be 8 of us in one hotel room. Don't tell anybody that, but you're not supposed to have 8 people in a hotel room. And when I happened to do that, when we came to that particular hotel, the general manager would see us every year. And that general manager would try to upgrade us and try to move us into a larger room because he knew of our plight. And that to me was an introduction to hospitality and moving into that. Moving forward into my career, going through the hotel industry and being a general manager, I happened to have an opportunity to stumble upon this great job called emerging markets, in which I did not know what it was. And it was a job where you're targeting underrepresented minorities to get them into the franchise business. Now, see, when I walked into McDonald's, I didn't know I had the opportunity to buy one. You see, when I stayed at that hotel, I had no clue that you would be able to own one. I thought Mr. Marriott owned one. I thought Mr. Hilton owned one. I thought Mr. Comfort owned one. I know that's an odd name, but hey, Mr. Comfort I thought was great. I had no clue. And when I was introduced to this as emerging markets development director, it gave me the opportunity to give back something that I knew that you would not be able to do. Fast forward to today, 15 years ago, Choice started this particular program, and it's targeting underrepresented minorities, and we've awarded 250 franchises up until this year, including 24 during COVID. I just wanted to share a little bit of my journey really quickly with you, and to turn that discussion over to Omar, if you could give us a little bit more about your journey and how you became interested and into franchising.
Sure, John. My background and exposure was similar to yours to some extent. I grew up in inner city Boston and spent a lot of money in places like McDonald's and Burger King. And so didn't really think about who owned it, but I did know that our community and me and my boys certainly frequented the place quite often. Then when I went off to college, I was the first person in my family to go to college. We grew up on, food stamps, and it was in kind of subsidized housing. And, when I was looking for work, often I found, restaurants and other kind of franchised organizations, a place to get some skills and get paid. I remember, Friday nights was a big night, somebody got paid basically that day. We'd go out and celebrate and go to Papa Gino's, and that was like a really big deal. When I went to college, I ended up going to Princeton, primarily because I was probably a pretty good athlete. As John said, I ran track, but I knew, I wasn't going to be a professional track runner, so I had to get a pretty good education. I ultimately went to Harvard Business School after that, but my professional background was largely in private equity. And that's a business where it's really, really, really hard to get into, right? You have to have very specific training, very specific schools, and it takes a long time to learn that craft. And after doing that for a couple of decades, I wanted to get closer to running a business. I wasn't sure I actually wanted to run it on a day-to-day basis, but I wanted to be more in a passive investor. And so I decided to look for a business to buy. And I knew I could get it financed because I came from kind of the financial side of the house. And I knew I wanted to be a little bit more hands-on, again, than a passive operator. As luck would have it, one of the first businesses I came across was this Planet Fitness franchise. And what was interesting about it was, one, I had a very successful investment in the health club industry before. And two, as an athlete or former athlete, I was very passionate about, wellness and helping people stay fit. So I connected with the family that was selling the business. We kind of came to a deal. We bought about 85% of their business. I financed it through my own money and a financial partner, Brightwood Capital, that's also owned and started by African Americans that I had known. And before I knew it, I was the CEO of the business, partly by choice and partly by accident, right? I basically had to do it. We had about 15 units when we started. And while all the units were profitable, the business was undermanaged. And in order to grow, it was going to be a little bit of a turnaround situation. So we focused the first year really fixing the business and preparing it for growth. And a couple of years later, we were up to like 50 units. We'd grown by acquisition and by some new units. By then, I ended up bringing a more complete management team to scale, and now we're over 100 units all throughout North America, states like Connecticut, New York, Tennessee, Georgia, New Mexico, Arizona, a couple in Canada. So that journey has been one where I've seen tremendous growth, not just in our unit count, but in our people. And that's one of the things that really makes me excited again about franchising.
Fantastic. And I know you mentioned that journey, and I know Carolyn has a great journey as well, going through not just here in the United States, but all over the world. So if you could share your journey a little bit, Carolyn.
Yes, thank you. I had an opportunity growing up. My father was in the Air Force, so I thank all veterans. If you're listening, you're on the call, thank you for your service. But we had an opportunity to travel to many different countries, and I would see how other countries reverence their seniors, right? Their older persons. Where in the United States at the time, it just seemed like you reached a certain age and then you were no more value. So as a child in junior high school, that's where my journey started. The seed was planted that something needed to be developed, because in my thought process, now, this to tell you my age, because it was in the 80s, there were no adult daycares, but my thought was, there needs to be an adult daycare center where children could keep their parents at home with them, but they would have to go to work. So they needed to have a place that their loved ones could be safe. So that God planted the seed at that time, which was wisdom. He gave me the name of the company in junior high school. And so I had a counselor who told me at the time, I was not an A student, nothing at all. She was preparing us for college. She said, Carolyn, what do you want to do? I used to dream all the time. And I said, you know, I'm going to be a nurse. She says, no, Carolyn, that's not the right thing for you. You need to be a secretary. This was the first time in my life as starting off that I was able to stand up and say, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a nurse. And I started on that pursuit. I tell everyone I went to the best nursing school in the whole nation, which is Winston-Salem State University. And I got my nursing degree. But of course, I still didn't step out in starting my own business because, one, I didn't know how. I had fear. I didn't have the capital, but I had a passion. So finally, in 2006, I decided to step out, and that's when Wisdom Senior Care was established. And my first client was a dog that I walked for 2 hours, 2 days a week, and then it turned into 24 hours, 7 days a week. Then I started needing more people to come on, and my husband, who is the COO of our company, Charles, he came on board with me. And we started this process in Durham, North Carolina, and we were helping a lot of seniors. And at the same time, I started helping, and you'll see I love to share. And I would share with other potential business owners how they could start their own home care business. So in North Carolina, I helped over 350 people start their business. But you know what I found out? That wasn't enough. They were still calling me. And I would just give information. Carolyn, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I found myself in about 2016, my passion, what I loved so much was starting to dwindle. My fire was starting to die, and it frightened me. And I said to Charles, I said, look what's happening. I don't think I can do this anymore. And he said, no, don't make any decisions right now. And you know, I thank him for that, because if he didn't say that, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. All the franchisees that we have would not be here now. But I listened, and we kept moving forward. And then there was a company called We Equip You, and they introduced us to franchising. I had heard the word, but I didn't understand what franchising was. They gave me a book called The E-Myth. And I'm going to tell you, when I read that book, at first I was mad because I saw myself in the first few chapters of the book. And the person, if you read the book, if you haven't, I would suggest you read it. But I saw myself where most small business owners or entrepreneurs, you're trying to do everything yourself. And so I saw an opportunity, and that's how we started franchising. And we are currently, we have four. We actually have 4 individual units in North Carolina. We have 2 corporate-owned units, and we're now growing outside of North Carolina, going into Georgia and to Virginia. And we're excited now to be able to assist these other owners as they journey through the process. So that's how my journey has led up to where I am at this point.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Carolyn. And now we'll go to Ruth to talk a little bit about her journey with CodeWiz.
Hey everyone. First of all, I just have to say my daughter is doing PE in the back, so if you hear a lot of jumping, that's what's going on. So my journey starts all the way back in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria and I moved to the US in 2010. Back in Nigeria, it was, we were a middle-class family. Middle-class family relatives here is literally translates to dirt poor. And life was tough. We made the best of it, but it was hard. My parents did the best that they could, but Nigeria is a third world country and it has its own issues. So, we were walking miles to get water. We lived without a lot of electricity. I grew up in northern Nigeria where there's a lot of Boko Haram is how people know it these days. And so there's a lot of religious unrest. You're always running for your life and so on and so forth. And I think it got to a point where I was like, gosh, there's just got to be more to this. Life cannot just be all about trying to stay safe and being scared and not having electricity and all of that. And so I started on a journey of trying to better myself. And on that journey, I discovered coding. So I taught myself to code at 24. And that was really hard because, the internet then was pretty bad. My sister's on the call, I'm sure she's laughing now. If you want really good internet, you have to be up at 3 a.m. That's when you can get, the internet maybe would be like 400 kilobytes per second, which is really, really slow. But that was the environment we were growing up in, and I was just really determined how to learn how to code because I knew that I just felt like it was my ticket out. And so as I was progressing in that journey, I got to a point where I was just completely confused and frustrated, and I felt like, maybe this wasn't for me. Maybe I was dreaming too big and trying to aim too high, and I was just about ready to give up when I connected with somebody who is in India, and he helped me out, and he was became my mentor over email, and he was helping me to fix my code and all of that. Long story short, it was the project that he helped me to work on that helped me to gain a scholarship in the US, and that was how I came over to the US. And so I got my master's in computer science. I felt like, that was it, I had achieved, but then there was always something in me that always felt, now that you're here, just take a look around you. What else can you do? What's the highest thing that you can aim for? And let's go for that. And so I was determined to go work for Microsoft because I felt like they were one of the big 4. So I got into Microsoft. I worked as a software engineer there for a while. And then life happened. I got married, started growing a family. We moved into the suburbs and the commute was awful and I just couldn't do it anymore. And at the same time, I was just feeling this whole big dissatisfaction. Like I just always felt like I was made to do more. I always felt like I was built to do more. And so I left my job at Microsoft and then I started looking into businesses. I've always been interested in business. CodeWiz is probably like my 11th venture. All the others were just, things that I've tried on the side. So I've always been interested in that. And I got to a point, I was like, oh, I want to do something. You know, I want to make an impact on people's lives. I want to have my own, I want to be my own boss. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. And then my husband was like, oh, I've seen 7-Elevens around. How about we look into a 7-Eleven? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. You know, I really love coding, and 7-Eleven, they sell soda. I already drink way too much soda. I'll probably drink my entire inventory in one day. And so, but that was what introduced me to franchising. So I looked into 7-Eleven. I was like, yeah, that's not for me. And then I was like, but I really like coding and I really want to make an impact. And the person who had helped me when I was learning how to code and I struggled with it, he literally changed the trajectory of my life. And that's something that I wanted to pay forward. And so when I thought a lot about it, I was like, okay, I want to do something that combines coding and then has impact and gives me all the flexibility that I need. And that's how I started to think about coding for kids. So I looked into the franchises that were available at the time. True entrepreneur, I'm like, I can do this by myself. I don't need anyone's help. And so I started CodeWiz. Very, very quickly, I realized that business ownership is hard. Like, it's a lot of work. But you know, we've been doing it. We've been trudging along. My big, hairy, audacious goal at the time when I started CodeWiz was that I would have 5 corporate locations in the Massachusetts area. And after the first one, I realized that that was going to be really, really hard. And one of the big things that happened was when I started CodeWiz, a month into starting CodeWiz, my son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And for those of you that are familiar with that, that's a life-altering diagnosis. Like, it changes everything. But I really had this dream. I really knew that this is something that I could do and I really wanted to do. And so because I had explored franchising before, I started to think, oh, maybe I could, you know, turn this into a franchise. Maybe I could bring in other people to help grow this business, because, you know, I'm all about world domination. I want CodeWiz to be everywhere in the world, and I know it's going to happen. But I just knew that I couldn't do it on my own. And so that's how that's how CodeWiz turned into a franchise. So we started franchising in 2019. We have 6 units right now, and we have like huge plans to really grow and just, you know, take CodeWiz worldwide. But that's how I got into franchising.
Thank you very much, Ruth, and those were some fantastic journeys. But I am sure on your mind and on my mind is, how do you increase the number of Black entrepreneurs and their engagement in the franchise industry? In the hotel industry, there are 57,433 hotels. Guess how many are owned by African Americans? Roughly 1,000. When you take that into perspective and look at that and how to engage, it is a great opportunity for us to do. And at Choice Hotels, we have targeted that and we've taken that head on. Choice actually is the only hotel company that actually has someone who's dedicated to targeting underrepresented minorities into getting into the business. As I mentioned before, we had 24 franchises that were closed for underrepresented minorities last year. And previous to that, it was 34 and 250 total. So we wanted to make sure that as an organization, we focused on this lack of diverse entrepreneurs in our system. In total, Choice has 70% of all of their hotels underrepresented minorities into with their franchises. So I just want to get a little bit of thought as to how we can increase the number of Black entrepreneurs in franchising. And Carolyn, would you mind taking that?
Yes, I think it's important as we're speaking about this awareness first, right? So that's why this type of event is so important, that we're reaching out on the now social networks to make people aware that there are people of color, minorities that are actually being successful in this arena. First of all, 2, people have to know what is franchising? And we also have to look at what is the biggest blocker. Even if people know what franchising is about, and part of my story that you constantly are overcoming is the capital, right? Because financial ability to be able to even get into franchising, to be able to even grow your business to the next level, it all comes back to that capital. So I think there's two parts there. First, there's that awareness piece of, once everyone becomes aware, then we have to look at how do we now help them be able to overcome, which I feel and is the major obstacle, is the capital. How do they find those type things? And as a company, Wisdom, we're facing this every day as we're talking to new potential franchisees. And we're looking at ways, how can we help this? How do we look at this? You know, is there different types? If it's not the banks, you know, maybe we have to think out. And I'm always talking, my team will tell you, thinking outside of the box, right? So maybe it's something that we've never even thought about before. And I'm just throwing things out. Maybe it's some different type of currency, digital. I don't know what the answer is, but I think those are things that we have to really talk about and be able to help people increase that number.
Thanks a lot, Carolyn. You mentioned something that was pretty poignant in that equity and the opportunity to go.
Yeah.
Omar, if you don't mind talking a little bit about the equity and some types of different venues or avenues that people have for franchising, and you know, how would someone be able to build wealth through franchising?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think people don't often realize how big of an opportunity franchising is, particularly for business ownership. And so, you know, I also have a firm called Untitled Capital Partners, and we do look to finance people to help usually buy franchises because we need cash flow. And so most of the private equity type options are built for businesses that already generate cash flow and supporting, you know, some sort of transaction or growth. And so that's a great place to get capital. It's diluted, it's highly diluted, it's expensive capital. But I would argue it's lower risk for the entrepreneur and for the investor to start with something that already works, right? It has cash, it has a management team, it has a bit of a playbook. So that's one way to do it. There's certainly others. If you want to do it, you know, start your own. There are SBA loans. They're kind of friends and family. And, you know, obviously in our community, it's harder, right? Because often we have other people on the dole and, you know, we just have to support a lot of other people. But if you can get that first, you know, tranche of capital to get started, that's really important. Now, there's some loans and stuff that you can get that you might have to put a personal guarantee on, and you have to do that, you know, thoughtfully and soberly. But there is money. I think the other thing I would say is, you know, we need to be a little more bold in our community. We spend a lot of money in franchise organizations, and I'm not convinced that those same franchise brands always reinvest in our communities to the same extent we invest in theirs. And so I think just having an attitude of, you know, we understand this space, we have the talent and the capability and hard work to be successful, and go out and not be afraid to ask people to help us. Because if brands are serious about diversifying their franchise base, they can come to the table with solutions. There's loans, they can guarantee a loan, they can let you borrow some equity. There's creative things you can do, but the first step is knowing that we're able and capable and not being afraid to ask.
Those are some great points, and also in a lot of our larger franchises, along with choice, we actually help support and give financial incentives for underrepresented minorities to come in. So we use our balance sheet to put people into those hotels as well. Ruth. Tell me a little bit about how you think that we should empower success through franchising.
So I think that having started my own business by, using all the savings in my bank account and putting a home equity line of credit on our house, I have, one of the things that has always been important to me was making sure that financing is available to people who really want to start this business, and especially people that look like me, because it is a lot harder for us. And so what we tried to do was I went to like the community banks in our area and I said, this is my vision. This is what I would like to do. And I need a financial partner. I need somebody that I can send people to. And, the likelihood of them being approved is much higher than if they just go to some random bank. And so that's something that we have tried to do. So we have a partner here in Massachusetts, and even though they're local, they have agreed to fund folks around the US. And I think that that's a big thing for us. So we've seen people come through who have been rejected by so many other places, but then they have come to this bank and then this bank has approved them. Even, their credit history is not the best. We had one person who had a bankruptcy and the bank was like, we believe in Ruth. We've seen what Ruth has done. And because of that, we are going to extend that to you and we're going to approve this loan for you. So I think that that's something that, at least for people at my stage where we're a little smaller and the amount of funding that people need to start this business is like between $100,000 and $160,000, not a ton of money. Just forming relationships, I think, with local banks that are looking to, that care about diversity, that's also key. I think that's one thing that can help. There's also a platform that I forget his name now, he's working on, where you can crowdfund your franchise concept. So if you want to start a franchise business and maybe you don't have a home that the bank can use as collateral, you can crowdfund it and people will put in, $500 here, $1,000 there. I think that would be I think is a disruptor, and I think that it is going to play a big part in making franchising equitable for all when you can crowdfund the money that you need to start a business. I certainly agree that awareness is a huge piece of it. When I started CodeWiz, my belief was if I build it, they will come, because, hey, I'm a Black woman, of course they're all gonna come, but it just hasn't happened that way. And what I am learning is that I have to be extremely intentional about reaching into my community and reaching out to people like me and saying, hey, this is possible, you can do this, I did it, there's no reason why you cannot do it as well. And, as an emerging franchisor, you're always budget constrained, right? You're counting every nickel and every dime. And so what I try to do is I use a tool that's completely free, and that's me. So I probably annoy some people on LinkedIn, but I'm always there saying, hey, you can do this, look at me, you can do this. And I have seen, since I started being very intentional about that, I have seen a whole lot more people that look like me reaching out to me and saying, hey, Ruth, I wanna learn more about this. And even if it's not CodeWiz, I've sent people to other brands, go check this one out, go check that one out. But just putting ourselves out there, I think is something that we can do, to say, hey guys, look at me, I did this and you can do it too. From an immigrant perspective, and I think that I see a little bit of that in the Black community as well. We just want to keep our heads down and do our work. We finally got this really good job. Why do you want to shake things up and go into business? It's risky, you could lose everything. But people just need to be aware that, yes, it's risky, but the rewards far outweigh the risk. And that's just how I approach it. It's just the education piece of it is just me putting myself out there and just trying to tell everyone, look at me, you can do this too.
Wow. Carolyn, did you want to piggyback on that as well?
Yes. Did you say Carolyn? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would say too, with that education piece of, a lot of times as we're meeting with potential franchisees, or even if it's just someone who is looking at starting a business, and if you talk to them about franchising, do you know what I hear 98.9% back is, oh no, I want my name. So again, I'm saying where the education has to be, because if we as a community can't understand how important it is to, it really doesn't matter about the name that's being advertised as it does about the impact that you can make, right? And when we talk about wealth sharing, that's what we're really creating. And this is a mindset that not everyone in our community has, but a large majority does. And I think that's something else that we are looking at. How can we help change that? And I think it has to change with us and then our children, right? And helping them to be open to realize early on, what does that look like? You know, so we're looking at even programs that you can get to people at an earlier age to be able to educate them. Someone on here stated that they've been doing franchising since they were 19 years of age. That's something that I saw when Charles and I walked into the IFA conferences. We heard people who said they've been doing franchises for years. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how come we didn't know about this? So that's my impact, is seeing what can be developed, and we're looking at getting to the younger, even the younger generations, and see how we can do that.
Fantastic. Now I know during this environment, in the COVID-19 environment, there's some things we had to pivot on and some things we had to work on. For example, in the hotel industry, we had to work on having housekeeping on demand. Making sure, because nobody wanted anyone in their room. Another thing is touchless check-in and things like that. How has, in your particular franchise, what have you done during COVID-19 to sort of pivot and to help entrepreneurs through that time? Omar, if you wouldn't mind speaking on that.
Yeah, John, my industry, like yours, has been directly affected by COVID. Health clubs were shut down for months, depends on what state you're in, but like one of our biggest states, New York, we were shut down almost 6 months. And so we had to do a lot of things. First was survive, right? It's kind of like survive in advance was my mantra, right? Like we had to make sure that our financials were able to withstand a hit. And we had to make sure our lenders were comfortable that we were managing our cash flow optimally. We also had to talk to our landlords and say, hey man, no revenue's coming in. You need to be patient. And we had enough money and make sure we got enough money to kind of get through that difficult period. We even had to ask some people to take pay cuts. And some people didn't make it. We didn't have the ability to afford, a lot of excess cash. I mean, I think we had to lay off or furlough, I don't know, thousands, 1,500 people, something like that. Fortunately, most of them are back. But in the short term, it was a real shock to the system. I think from an operational perspective, we had to change some things. So we worked with our corporate parent, and this is where, again, the power of franchising could be really helpful. We have over 100 units, but there's 2,000 plus Planet Fitnesses. And we all worked together to do a couple of things. One, to change our operational models. We came up with like document over 100 pages that we could show to government officials and say, look how safe we are. Look at these policies and procedures and things that we can do so that we won't spread COVID. And that helped us get open and stay open in many states. It also made sure we were all doing the same thing to protect the brand and protect members as they came in and protect our employees. So those things are like touchless check-in. We separated, elliptical machines, so everything's 6 feet apart. We developed a mask policy. We have, an app that had been updated to have things like a crowd meter to make sure it doesn't get, you can check and see how crowded it is at any moment in time. We had more people joining online. just a whole host of kind of policies and procedures. And thankfully, what we found is our statistics are extraordinary. You know, I know 1 out of 100,000 people or something that check in had COVID. So it's extraordinarily small. We've had no documented spreader events. And so we've been able to keep people safe. And importantly, I think people now realize, you know, fitness is really important, right? So, you know, whether you get COVID or not, you're going to deal a lot better with it if you're safe. So we worked as a franchisee group and with our corporate parent to create a philosophy that no one's going to be left behind. We haven't had any Planet Fitnesses close, and we think we're delivering a real essential service at a really critical time.
Fantastic. And I have actually been to a Planet Fitness as well. I'm a workout advocate, and without question, I appreciate all of your work that you've done. And when you think about it, back to March, in doing that, some of our large brands were huge advocates. For example, our CEO went to Capitol Hill and was right in front of our president, telling our president what we needed in this industry. So that is the power of brand and the power of that franchise to do that. Ruth, would you mind taking on what you guys have done through COVID as well? I just think it's a pretty fascinating and interesting way of how we had to pivot our business.
So for us, CodeWiz is a brick and mortar concept, and so we have a physical location. And we started to hear from the schools that they're likely to shut down, and you know there was a lot of apprehension. Everybody was stressed out. So we actually shut down 2 days before the schools called it and told all the kids to stay home. But then within 2 days, we were able to just turn things around and start to offer our classes online. So online classes were never a thing that we had planned for. It wasn't something that we had thought of. We had to figure out plans to get kids computers because if kids didn't have computers in their homes. So we had to quickly set up like a lending system where, you know, we knew where we were dropping off the computers and getting them connected and all of that. It was a pretty stressful first couple of weeks when COVID originally hit, but you know, it has really, there've been a lot of silver linings for us, to be honest. Like I said, online classes were not something that we're thinking of, but as soon as we started, and then around June, late May, June, when the parents started to get comfortable with Zoom classes, we started to see a significant uptick, you know, in the number of enrollments that we were having. We were able to reach places that we'd never been able to reach before. So those were some of the good things that happened. I intentionally decided to pause on franchise development because, you know, as an emerging franchisor, it's literally a team of one. And I really wanted my focus to be on the people that we had and making sure that they were fine and that they were stabilized. And there was only so much that I could do. And so we didn't grow in 2020 in terms of franchise units because we were just trying to make sure that we were surviving and then moving from surviving to thriving. We were very blessed to be able to partner with Tutor Doctor, the franchise system, and that has opened a whole host of other opportunities for us. I think that the beauty of the franchise system really came through during this COVID period because everybody just had each other's backs. You know, like Angela Cote, she had this whole franchising roundtables where all of us could come to, and I would come with my blanket because that was the only way that I felt safe, and there was no judgment. Everybody was, you know, just expressing the issues that they were having, and people were, you know, like coming together to brainstorm. For us, the CodeWiz family, it actually really brought us together because it sort of everybody was almost like at the same level playing field because like, all right, what do we do? Let's all come together and figure out what we're going to do about this. So there was a lot of innovation coming from everyone, and it was really like a beautiful thing to see. We're hoping that we can go back to our in-person classes by September, but I think for us, the online classes are here to stay. We're just going to do it differently. We'll probably pursue like a hybrid type model going forward.
Fantastic. And as I ask Carolyn to answer that last questions, I'd like to reach out to the participants, if you wouldn't mind to put some of the questions that you have in chat. So that way we may be able to answer some of those once we get off of this particular topic. But Carolyn, this is of great interest to me, as I know that with COVID-19, you have at-risk population who you typically were working for. So tell us a little bit about how you pivoted and what happened during that time for you.
Yeah, it was, I can still remember the day as this was happening, as all of us can. And I was standing in unbelief because I couldn't really believe that our country was shutting down. Then I thought it would just be 2 days. But there was this fear that was so strong, as all of you can remember, but I actually saw people shaking. We have an academy where we instruct nurse aid ones, and the instructors were, you could physically see how the fear was. So our first thought at that point, we have a foundation in our organization of faith. That's one of our core values. And we went back to that faith of praying. And really, we have an affirmation. It's a covering, reminding our whole team, our franchisees, all the way to our caregivers, that we're covering everyone, because the need of serving these seniors and helping them stay at home did not stop. In fact, we saw the need increase. It increased so much to the point that some of our offices probably doubled. But at the same time that the need was increasing, we had a workforce that was decreasing. So we were having to figure out, how do we still meet safely these needs that we have with a decreasing workforce? So we started providing and assuring that all our franchisees knew the process of how to get all the necessary equipment to help the caregivers and the clients feel safe about them still coming into their home. So we were able to do that. We were also just able to help our clients by seeing that we were putting necessary protocols in place. The mask, I thought about this early. I was like, wow, well, if we got to wear these masks, why don't we just get them all the same and get Wisdom like a logo on it? Just try to make it a little bit more comfortable for people. So we started doing those type processes as well. And all of these things, having them take temperatures prior to them going into the home. And one of our franchisees, and this is how Wisdom as a family works together, they were able to find us a way to get testing kits so that we could test our caregivers. Do you know how much more comfortable that made caregivers feel, and the clients that knew that we could provide that extra measure of protection? So those were some of the things, not just us as the franchisor, but our franchisees got involved as well, of making sure what we could do. If they heard something, they'll make us aware so we could make the whole team aware. But we also realized that we're no longer able to bring our caregivers into our buildings. So we had to start looking at online. And how could we start doing that? So with our health academy, we have a school that we train people. It acts as a filter for our franchisees. Well, we were able to take that totally online. We had been talking about it for a long time. And sometimes I say, God, there's that opportunity again, right? It comes up, and here's the opportunity. And like Ruth says, it opens up a whole nother avenue. So not just for our academy, but for our franchise system as well. So I think that's some of the ways that we're continuing, because it hasn't stopped, right? The need hasn't stopped, but our caregiver, the pool of caregivers, what we're having to do now is look and say, how do we find these? We have to look at new ways to find that workforce. So that's how, I hope that answers that question.
It did, without question. And I had a couple of comments and questions actually from the audience. The first, and this is open up to all of the panelists, is how do you select a brand? Does anybody want to jump in and take that?
Yeah, I'll take a first cut at that one, John, because I look at a lot of brands, again, as an investor and also as a potential operator. And I think the first place to start is the unit economics of the brand. Does the business consistently make money? Do franchisees make money? And you can tell through their FDD and the item 19, but you also can do some due diligence, because to me, that's what you're paying royalty for. You're paying them because they have something that works and it's proven and it should show up in the numbers. The second thing is it more just kind of the brand opportunity. Does it resonate with you? You don't control the brand, so you need to trust the people that you're partnering with at the corporate headquarters, right? I mean, they're not your boss, but they're your partners. And, you know, for me, that's, again, really important, because that trust level is something that you can't change it, right? If it doesn't work, you're going to be in business hopefully for a long time. So I think the unit economics and then just that kind of chemistry is important. And then there's obviously personal things like, you know, is this something you're passionate about? Does it fit your personal background? I think that's important too. But the nice thing about a franchise is you don't need to be an expert in the particular field you're going into. As long as you can kind of follow the system and it works, and you're a smart, hardworking person, you should do as well as everybody else or better. And I think that's the beauty of a franchising model.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that accentuates a great point from a franchising perspective. You're not just in business, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, which is a credo in which we all go through. So we want to make sure we're able to give back as a franchisor. When you're selecting that brand, you want to make sure that you look at their history. What have they done for other franchisees? You interview specific franchisees that have worked for them. Is this particular brand going to be great in a downtown urban market? For example, from Choice, do you want to put it in a big urban market, or is it secondary or tertiary market, such as our Comfort Inns? At Choice, we have 5,000 hotels throughout the U.S. So it is very key that you do select the great location and the correct brand for what you are bringing to that. Okay, so I see another, as a franchise broker, I find that net worth requirements are a huge obstacle to Black franchise ownership. This is, of course, part of a much larger issue about the systematic barriers to Black and POC wealth building. How do we start addressing in the franchising world that situation? Does anyone want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
No, well, this is Tim Williams with Williams Chicken. As being a franchisor, and we operate here out of Texas, and we have 40 restaurants, 17 franchise partners. And we don't see as African-American franchisee or minority franchisor, equity companies, big investor invested in our brands.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And, and I have been told, how to ask the questions. Like I said, I've been a part of IFA since 2000. I think I received my CFE in 2005. We've been in business 30 plus years. Our revenue, corporate and franchise, is set up $30 million. We have a proven track record, but we don't get those reach out. We don't get those by the whole state or by our city or by our territory. And I asked the question, is it a problem of you paying royalties to someone who don't look like you? Is our brand not good enough? We're not just in minority neighborhoods. So our prices and our buildings and our products competitive with match our competitors. Why don't we get those deals? We go to the franchise partner meeting, we go to the meetings, we go IFA, we get our certification, We get training. Majority of us have college education, and majority of us build our business by bootstraps.
Yep.
But it seems not. We still don't get those offers, and that's education. And that's one thing that we really pushing at Williams Chicken is that we got to educate our people, and we have to probably at some point, like we started, we have to grow our own. We have safe program where we're taking some of our managers and taking them from management to franchise partners to grow it, because we're not getting those opportunities. And that's one of the things that as a member on the board that I'm going to address is that why we don't get the opportunities that everybody else, and I can remember time when I was going through my CFP training that some companies started at the same time we did, but they got the upper hand because the equity company stepped in, not bought their business. Because now a lot of people asked to buy Williams, but no one's have asked, hey, as an equity firm or a large investor, we want a territory because your brand is proven. I haven't seen that, and we're not getting that until we address it.
That's great and interesting, and that brings me to something that actually we just created at Choice as well to help with fulfilling that equity gap. Some of our owners, so we created the Choice Hotel Owners African American Alliance. It's the only hotel company that actually has a group focused on that, and this is to uplift and to let people know about ways to get equity. What is CPACE? What is an SBA lender? How do you have the opportunity to go and to get that to buy that particular franchises? So these particular groups, I believe, uplift and bring together a lot of opportunity where we're there and lacking. And I know we spoke about education earlier in the discussion, but education is extremely important. People just need to know. For some reason, we have to get out there and let everybody know that this is an opportunity and this is a way for us to create wealth. And don't just let, I don't have this opportunity, I don't have this equity. There are ways of financing, as Ruth, I believe, mentioned earlier, crowdfunding, to try to get things done from that perspective. Okay, I have one other question. Unless somebody else wanted to tackle that, I have another question. It says,
I have one more insight on that question. We're creating that here. This is the start of removing those barriers and having a conversation. So right now, we're going to be the catalyst for that, where we talk about the SBA financing, the 90% guarantees, the waiver of the SBA guarantee fees. We'll speak to Rob's transactions to support with the equity bridge, or working with the private equity lender. So we can have that conversation and then be that bridge, and you'll hear more about what's to come and how we will be the catalyst for that. So I just wanted to let you know we're going to become that solution.
Fantastic, and I think this is,
can I add one thing?
Yes.
I would also encourage people to consider attending the IFA convention. It's a wealth of knowledge and information, best practices sharing for those that want to kind of dip their toe into franchising. I would highly encourage you to sign up for the IFA convention. For those looking to just peruse a number of franchise systems, there's the Franchise Opportunities Guide. Great way to start, just looking through industries, member companies as an initial place to start researching companies.
fantastic. Next question I see is, can the panelists sort of share with us how they bring education in the Black community on franchising? I believe, if I didn't capture that correctly, but sort of what I think we sort of hit on that already from an educational standpoint of what we can do. So I'll move to the next is we might be able to point folks to the Franchise Opportunity Guide as starting to point to researching member companies, but where can they go in addition to IFA from an educational standpoint to find resources for franchises?
Well, there are several places you can go. you know, IFA is part of it. Then you have multi-unit conventions that you can go to find out about franchising. You have Be the Boss seminars that goes around the country. So there's a lot of opportunities. One thing that Carlos mentioned that we're doing here in Texas, we have reached out to the Chamber of Commerce here in the Texas Black Chamber of Commerce, and we're doing webinars starting on the 8th, I believe, on the 16th, where we as already minorities in the franchise business, the first step is we need to go out and try to educate our people on franchising. That'd be a good start, but like I said, you know, most of us got in franchise by accident. You know, I just happened to be president in Woke, that chapter when at Tech when we was talking about franchising in business law, and caught my interest, and then it paid me the way for me to be where I am now. So it's all about education, and we as the leadership or leadership council, we got to push our people and push IFA and other organizations that you might be a part of, whether you're a fraternity, sorority, whether you're a Mason or not, whatever. We have to educate our people about franchise opportunity and let them know that there is a great opportunity to build your wealth through franchising. So I think it will start with this panel here and go forward, because we experienced it and we can talk about it and we can tell about our experience about it.
John, I would like to also add that this is just the first of a series of discussions. We want this to be a one-stop shop for pulling together other organizations that may also be addressing some of the needs. Our goal is for this to be a continuous process. We have linked up with a number of organizations that have populations that we'd love to reach. So we are going to link arms with a number of national organizations. So stay tuned for more programming coming from the council. I think that you'll find that it's going to be easier going forward to get information and tap into resources. That's one of the goals of the council.
In which I think it is. So IFA for me has been a wealth of knowledge and wealth of opportunity. You can get a ton of information, if not the foremost opportunity on franchising. So I know we're sort of coming up to the back end of our panel discussion. I just wanted to give an opportunity for each panelist to give their takeaways and give some feedback to our panelists and sort of what you wanted everyone to leave with. Ruth, would you mind starting us off?
Sure. Again, thank you so much for having me. This has just been such a great thing to be a part of, and I really look forward to all the other programming that would be coming out of this, because I think it's something that is desperately, desperately needed right now. I think the last thing that I just want to say that I didn't get to say earlier is one of the reasons that we all need to be thinking about, you know, building a business and not just putting our head down and doing our jobs is this concept of generational wealth. We need to build wealth for our children. When I started CodeWiz, when I was going into the franchising side of things, I was trying to figure out how I was going to get money, because it's terribly expensive to start a franchise. And one of the advisors I was talking to was like, yeah, I'm sure you have an uncle or a sister somewhere that can just write a check for $200,000 for you. And I'm like, no, sir, I do not. Yes, there's the concept of Nigerian princes, but it's not really a thing. You know, there's really no Nigerian prince with that much money back home. And I think it lit a fire in me that I want to make sure that I am building wealth for my kids, so that when they grow up and they have dreams that they want to pursue, I can write them that check and I can be their support system. So when we think about business and building wealth through franchising, it's not just for us, but it's generational wealth that we're creating for our kids that are coming behind.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ruth. Carolyn, would you mind?
Yes, again, I want to thank you guys for having me and giving us the opportunity. I just wanted to reiterate what Ursa had stated about the IFA. I think when anyone's researching and really trying to figure out that's a great place to start. The convention is coming up, and you can learn a tremendous amount about what direction, even if franchising will be right for you. Okay. The other thing is YouTube. I know Wisdom, we have some YouTube videos out that talks about franchising. Even if the senior care is not your industry, we're really open to helping you get to the right place. So anyone on this panel would be a good place for you to be able to reach out to. I would just remind people to share. Think about this. In order for us to grow, in order for us to be impactful, we can't be selfish. You have to be willing to share. And that truly makes, and that's really what franchising is.
Fantastic. Omar?
Yeah, I would just piggyback a little bit on what Ruth talked about. To me, this is about wealth creation and about controlling your own destiny. And our community needs that, right? You can't have a political voice, a social voice without capital and control of capital in a capitalistic society. So if we want to advance not only our families, but our community, I think franchise is an extraordinary way to do it. Again, there's no barrier other than hard work. You do need to figure out how to get some money, but you know, a lot of us has hustled, right? A lot of us got skills. A lot of us know how to figure it out, right? We can do that, right? And so I don't want people to feel like these barriers are insurmountable. And franchising is built to support people to do that. You know, I never considered myself an entrepreneur, even though I'm entrepreneurial. I'm not a huge risk taker. And so I did end up here by accident, but I used something that I knew how to do. I bought a business. Some people may work, you know, like where John does, in a franchise concept. Do that for a little while, save some money, and then maybe they spin out later, or they support other people becoming entrepreneurs. Some people may, you know, run a Dunkin' Donuts and realize, well, if I'm already running the thing, why don't I own it, right? So I think a lot of it's just a mentality of, you know, as Ruth said, it's not just about having a job. It's about creating following your calling and creating a legacy that's more impactful. And I think for me, it's inspiring. It's a lot more fun to, you know, work for myself and contribute broadly than just feel like I have a job. And so I think it's a really rewarding career path. And there's a lot of different ways to contribute if people are interested.
Fantastic. And I'll piggyback on that, Omar. And again, you mentioned I was a franchisor and working in a brand, which is, it gives me great opportunity to bring that concept, to bring that franchise to underrepresented minorities. And I'll just like to end it by saying that it doesn't matter how long it's going to take. It doesn't matter if you have X amount of money in the bank. There are ways to get together to come to get a franchise. There is cooperative economics that you have the opportunity to have. A lot of the time, it's not the capital that you need, it's the intellectual capital. For instance, a franchisee who I met 6 years ago, he was working for, his name is Frederick Washington. He was working for the Department of Housing and Urban Development in Florida under the president. And I met him at an industry conference. During that conference, he mentioned, I never thought about owning a hotel. Maybe I'll have the opportunity to do that. And I walked him step by step. I held his hand and told him what demand generation was. I told him, you know, what location was. I told him what average daily rate was, what RevPAR was, some of our industry lingo. Fast forward 6 years later, he just signed the largest emerging markets franchise agreement with Choice in history, which is 6 hotels in Florida. So I just wanted to leave everybody with that fire that we mentioned before. Let's take that little spark, that little fire, and make it an inferno so that we are able to create that generational wealth. Richard, back over to you.
So I really, I'm full. I feel the energy coming from everybody. This is absolutely a blessing. If you did not walk away from this conversation better, check your ticker, check your soul a little bit, because I'm really full in that. And the true test of an organization, a community, an individual, true strength is how they tackle their greatest obstacle. And I see here today, this is the foundation of tackling those barriers that affect so many Black entrepreneurs and minorities throughout the entire world. So I thank the panelists. I thank everybody that was a part of making this happen. Ricky, I'm gonna give your email out to everybody here, ramos@franchise.org. She will provide more information on how to connect with us, how to become a part of this council. We welcome you. Please reach out, connect to everybody here through social media. We are all LinkedIn Mavericks. We're always on LinkedIn, so connect with us, build the community. There'll be multiple panels taking place, building wealth through franchising, type of franchise opportunities, meeting successful franchise owners, continuing educational programs that we'll set up through the foundation. So I look forward to working with everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you for embarking on this journey with us, and have an amazing day.